statement on our presentation on the website. So just a reminder of our location. So the Jackpot property is located just north of Lake Superior. It's actually one of the closest projects to infrastructure that there is, and I'll speak a little more to that. But from our location here, we can easily access the Great Lakes and the Great Lakes and the St. Lawrence Seaway, which basically allows us to ship to anywhere in the world wherever there may be a processing plant or other downstream facilities. As well as to within the Great Lakes here to Southern Ontario, where a lot of auto manufacturers are planning on converting to EVs, as well as the U.S. auto sector in this area over here. There are gigafactories planned for the Windsor area and other areas in Ontario, and as well as battery plants. So there is a move to convert everything to electric here in the coming years. I know, for example, Honda has a large plant over here that builds, between 800 and 900 CRVs every day, as well as Honda Civics, same thing, about 860 Honda Civics per day are built here. And they're building an EV plant that is expected to be in operation by 2029, which will probably is expected to produce more vehicles than that, probably on the order of 1,000 to 1,200 per day. So, and the Ontario government does want a fully integrated supply chain here within Ontario. So this is a, in terms of where we're located, we fit right into that, and it could help us in the future with, help from the government with funding on development and so on. In terms of location and with respect to infrastructure, we're in an ideal place. We're within 12 kilometers of the Trans-Canada Highway. There's also power lines that run across this highway. Hydro One has indicated that they will upgrade all of these power lines within the next few years, so that any mining operation that or any mine that is developed in the area can have access to full power with no limitations. So that is in progress. There's even a small power plant in the area, but there's also access to rail over here at the town of Nipigon, as well as a workforce. And then we have, access to a potential port at Red Rock, where I know RockTech is planning on or is considering building a processing facility in the area. As well as the Port of Thunder Bay, which is a well-established port, which again, we can go to anywhere in the world from. So in terms of infrastructure, this is key. This will definitely help keep our capital costs down when we look towards production, and gives us a big competitive advantage to compared to a number of other lithium projects that are located in very remote areas. Upwards of 1,000 or 2,000 kilometers away from any type of infrastructure in many cases. In terms of the resource area, we'll focus in on this area over here where the resource is located. So if we do that, we'll see that our resource is split up between two deposits: the Jackpot main pit, effectively, which is where most of the drilling was focused in the past by ourselves and also previous owners back in the 1950s and 60s when it was first discovered. We expanded, the old resource significantly with now approximately 5.3 million tons of combined indicated and inferred within this pit. And I do stress that it is an open pit. It is fairly shallow, and it is all there's no underground mining required at this location at all. And so it's fairly easily accessible, cheap mining, and so on. So from that perspective, ideal. And likewise at the Casino Royale pit, we discovered this earlier this year in the spring. We drilled 8 holes in this location. All 8 holes hit mineralization, which means that the deposit's not closed off yet. So we still have to do some significant drilling here to see how much more there could be here. But just the 8 holes so far did define 3.1 million ounces in the inferred category, and it is open, so we will be testing that to to see how big this could get. So just to stress, I guess the resource that we're announcing today is where we are at this moment, but this is not the be all and end all, and we do expect to add resources here, and there may be more, to the north and to like even in between these pits and to the south that could potentially be discovered here as well. So, and I'll speak to that a little more. In terms of the resource itself, in the combined between the two pits, there's 3.1 million tons in the indicated category at 0.85 lithium oxide percent lithium oxide. And then likewise in the inferred category, we've got 5.3 million tons at 0.91. That's at a 0.3 cutoff, which is a fairly standard cutoff for open pitable deposits. But if you're concerned about the grade and wanted a higher grade, we can use a higher cutoff and without necessarily losing too much material. For example, the total lithium contained would only drop by maybe 1,000 tons if we raised the cutoff to 0.5. Likewise, on the inferred category, we might lose a couple thousand tons. So it's a very minor amount, less like about 5% that would be lost in terms of the actual lithium content. So it's a robust resource, no matter which way you look at it. It's fairly consistent. So this is sort of ideal for us from a mining perspective as well. In terms of what it looks like, we have at the Jackpot pit a series of stacked pegmatite dikes that are fairly shallow dipping to flat lying on surface. This particular one over in this area is one that we hit pretty much everywhere we drill at the Jackpot area, the Jackpot main area. And so it's the major dike, but there's also a flat lying dike on surface over here. There are other dikes that aren't shown here, but they're sort of lenses of pegmatites that are kind of in between these and also below them. And then there are other ones that we find to the north here as well, which, if we looked a bit further into the page, we would see another one in this area. And so our thought was that these continue and they dip towards the north, which is in this direction. So our thought was that we may find more of these stacked pegmatites as we go north, which is why we drilled the Casino Royale area. And sure enough, we did hit one here. This one, likewise, is shallow dipping, but it could be, much more shallow. It's possible that it's, flatter than what is represented here. We haven't found where it daylights at surface yet, and it's possible that it continues in this direction. So we will be testing that as we drill. But also it's possible that we have other pegmatites between these two here as well. So we'll also be testing that. And likewise to the north here, it's possible that we have more, and I'll speak to that on the next slide here. So in terms of Casino Royale, here are the 8 holes that we've identified in the pit that defines the resource. Again, it's open in all directions. So if we, definitely to the east, potentially to the west here as well, under this, it's a small lake here. And to the north, down dip, and to the south, up dip. Again, like I said, we haven't found where it daylights, so it's possible that it intersects around here, or if it's flatter, it could go much further south. So we'll see when we do some more drilling here to find out. So this is on the right-hand side here, we can see the 2 pits. We do see some areas that we're stripping in the coming month here or so, where we've identified some more pegmatites. These could be further drilling targets for the fall and into the winter. Over here we had discovered the 500-meter pegmatite area in the last couple of years and drilled it last year. The best intercept here was a relatively narrow, less than 5 meters of 1.3% lithium oxide, but the pegmatite disappeared under cover here as we went to the east, and obviously it does continue. We believe we found the extensions over here, so again, that's a focus of the area of exploration, excuse me. And then, the Point Lithium area is an area that we do see lithium showings here as well. These could be connected, or actually these could be connected, and likewise there could be parallel ones up here. Again, we need to do some drilling to figure out exactly all of the geometry here, but the point is that these are 2.5 kilometers apart, and you can hide a fairly large deposit anywhere in between here. So there's significant exploration upside available from this area as well, on top of just adding resources to the Casino Royale. So these are areas that we can point to that are easy to, easy from the perspective of, having lower risk in terms of exploration. And so we'll be focusing on these areas here in the coming months. But even beyond that, our property package is fairly large. It's almost 19,000 hectares. That's 19 kilometers across here by 14 kilometers. So it's a very large area to cover. These areas over here have been sampled with a systematic grid last year, and we do show elevated, these darker areas here are elevated lithium in soils, and we show a bit over here as well. So we're doing, we've been sort of sampling this with a grid this summer and into the fall. To see how, if we can identify further drilling targets in these areas as well. So beyond the exploration that is at the resource and expanding the resource and sort of near resource, there's other areas here that could potentially add deposits to this whole project as well. So just moving forward to speak to the economic potential. We haven't done our own economic study yet, but what I would like to point out is that RockTech Lithium, who's only 15 kilometers north of us, have done a pre-feasibility study on their project. For them, reserves were or are 7.3 million tons at 0.82. Our resource is all open pittable at Jackpot here with 8 million tons in total. Theirs is about, they have about half of that in open pittable. They do have underground as well. But even with the underground, they still show a robust IRR at a $1,500 a ton concentrate price. Now we know that the price right now is lower than this, but we do believe that this is a good long-term price, and I think the industry believes that this is a good long-term price going forward. But even if we use lower prices, we could potentially combine our operations here. We do have an MOU signed with RockTech to explore how we could collaborate on the development of these two projects. At the very least, we could share the costs of one concentrator, for example, and both use the same facility for that. And then it could be, a collaboration could be even more expansive with a fully integrated operation and so on, if we chose that direction, or we could potentially, M&A is also, being considered. From our perspective, we would. From our perspective, we would do what is right for our shareholders, and so we haven't committed to anything in any sort of solid way. So we're at this point, we're just exploring what our options may be. So RockTech is further ahead than we are in terms of the work that they've done for the economic assessments and looking at the actual locations, like at Red Rock, for example, and potentially we could benefit from that, but by working with them as well. But I would like to stress that our project is still growing, and it's quite possible that we could carry on our own here as well. So just a quick summary. I think Imagine here in the Jackpot project has pretty much everything that an investor would want. We have a solid footing with a base resource that is still growing, that we'll be doing expansion drilling on. We have further exploration that we will do near these resources that are, I would say, somewhat lower risk exploration. And then we also have blue sky exploration on the remainder of the property. There are a number of pegmatites that we know of on the property, all these little blue stars, for example. And these all need to be followed up on and provide much more blue sky exploration potential on top of what we already have. And again, infrastructure, I can't stress enough how critical this is. This will makes this project stand out from the perspective of costs, and from the perspective of being able to develop and bring it into production effectively. So I think with that, I'll just leave it here. I think I talked through that fairly quickly. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer any that are out there right now. Now, I don't think I can see people's questions here, so someone may have to tell me what they are. So.
Okay, JC. So just FYI, everyone, there should be a Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen where you can type questions if you have a question for JC. And then JC, I can see them. I'll read them to you.
Yeah.
Okay, here comes. So what is the exploration plan for the remainder of the year?
So for the remainder of this year, we'll just go back to this slide over here. So the first thing, well, there's two things. One was we're going to be stripping these areas here for, these are pegmatites that we discovered at surface, and we just want to expose them a little more to see, the sort of the dimensions of them, how wide they are, how long they are, how extensive they are. And and we can do some more sampling at surface. And then, these may be drill targets for later in the year. I think, from a drilling perspective, obviously Casino Royale is a priority target. That's probably where we'll start when we start drilling again. And, we do want to get a sense of, what the size of this is. Is it going to add significant tonnage? We believe that it can towards the east here, and also down dip and potentially up dip as well. So this is where we may do some drilling here coming up in the next couple months. We do have funds still available. We do have a deposit with Major Drilling that they still owe some drilling for, and so we can do a bit of drilling here before before the end of the year for sure. And at the very least a small program, so we can do that. Again, the stripping, and then we'll be following up on our soil sampling, which is ongoing right now, but following up with an analysis of what's been discovered there to see what other drill targets there may be. And then if we can, depending on funding and so on, we obviously will drill these areas as well going forward.
And then is there any testing plan between Jackpot Main and Casino?
Oh yes, absolutely. So so as I say with Casino Royale, the plan is to test both along strike and down dip and up dip, but up dip also includes testing for potentially other pegmatites that may be located between these two deposits. So it could be that Casino Royale, like I said, might be flatter and continue towards here, or there could be a whole other pegmatite in between here, or more than one potentially. So we'll see what happens as we drill here, but the plan is to test these areas in between, definitely.
Okay. Then someone's asked, when would an MRE covering the exploration zones be potentially produced? So
sorry, an MRE covering these zones? So yeah, so I mean, first we have to explore it. So so mineral resource covering these other zones, it depends on obviously exploration success and so on. So I think the first step is to focus on drilling it, and and then we'll look at the results, and we'll determine when to do a resource update. But we just published the first one today, and so it could be a bit of a while before we publish a second one here. But let's see what our results give us. So.
Okay. And then we've got a question on the cash situation. How much have you budgeted for work for the next 6 months, and how much and do you have that money in the till?
Yeah, so right now we still have about $500,000 in the bank, and we also have a few $100,000 as a deposit with our drilling company. So we will, between those two, between all of that, we can still do a drill program here and finish our stripping and test and sampling programs. So that is all budgeted and in with money that we have currently. So beyond that, if we want to expand our drilling program and so on, then at that point we would need to raise some funds, and obviously that's market dependent, and we'll proceed with caution on that front. Make sure that it makes sense for shareholders and so on. So. We do still have funds. We do still have the ability to finish a program here for the rest of the year, and then beyond that, we'll see what the market conditions are like and go from there.
Okay, another question. Looks like lots of lithium outside of areas in the new resource. What's your favorite target for new resources outside of the current resource?
So, well, I think our favorite targets right now are in this area right here between the 500 and the Point Lithium area. This shows a lot of promise because it kind of goes along with the model that there's a stacked system over here, and that these pegmatites continue to the north, even though they're east-west trending, but they continue to be stacked as we go further north. And so we believe that further north here we may find even more. So in terms of what we can see and what we can target for drilling, obviously Casino Royale and the area in between these is priority, and then this area north of Casino Royale, but also areas north of that, although that's not drill ready just yet, but there is some exploration to be done, and our sampling that we'll follow up on as we go, as we get more information here. And then beyond that, this area near Crossgrove Lake could be interesting. Crossgrove Lake is a lake down here. And it could be interesting because we are seeing elevated lithium, and we just need to do some more soils and a bit more work here to figure out where exactly we can drill. We don't necessarily want to drill blindly here. Like I said, it is a large area, so we just need to refine some work here based on the soils, and then from there we'll determine what's the best route forward. But so this is another area that could be interesting. And then to the east, obviously, it's virgin territory here. We are aware of pegmatites in these areas, but they're a little further away from the road, so that's why we haven't sort of totally focused on this area just yet. But there is more to do here as well. So there's lots of exploration remaining to be done here, and but in terms of priorities, I think just north of Casino Royale is the next place we'll go, and then in between the two deposits, obviously along strike, and then there may be more to the south over here as well, which again, we don't see at surface necessarily, but we might be able to see it in soils when we finish this program. So it would sort of continue the stacked theory here as we go along as well. So
First Nations in the area, are there First Nations in the area you have to negotiate with?
Yeah, there's a few communities in the area that are not too far from the project, actually, and we do have an exploration agreement with the communities, and in general they're very supportive. They do want to see development in their areas. They want to make sure that it's environmentally sound and doesn't disturb that it's done correctly. But for the most part, they're a very good group to work with. They're very business minded. Many of the contractors that we use for like our road maintenance, for example, building bridges and so on, are actually Indigenous companies. And some of these companies are fairly large. Actually, they do work for Ontario Hydro and so on. So it's we have a very good group of communities over here, very and very supportive. They just want to make sure that as we're advancing it, that we do everything properly as well, which is what we do. So
okay. Then there's a question: has RockTech offered any type of equity interest in the form of dollars based on MOU?
We haven't. So in terms of discussions with RockTech, we're considering all types of options, mostly at the operational level at this point. It's possible that that there could be something else, but there's no specific sort of deal in place right now. And but all I can say, I guess, is that we're exploring everything. So whatever is possible, we will consider it, and if it makes sense for our shareholders, we obviously will do the right deal. So
okay. And then the last question I see right now: do you have support from the Ontario government?
I think we can and will get support. We have benefited from the Ontario Junior Exploration Program, for example. We got a grant from the government last year. In terms of development, they do have grants for infrastructure development. And so from that perspective, as we advance the company, advance the project, I think there will be access to funds as we move towards, the planning and development stages. A lot of the funds, the bigger funds available are for actual development. So, we're not quite at that stage yet, but we do anticipate that there will be funds available.
Okay, that's all the questions I see at this point. Yep, that's it. So I think we've answered everything.
Okay, so if that's it, I thank everyone for joining the call. And if anyone has any questions and so on, feel free to reach out at any time. I'm always happy to answer any questions anyone may have. So again, thank you all. And I think with that, I guess that's it for the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.